Portugal.
From Brooklyn to Lisbon. A journey years in the making, a visit to never forget.
We can't stop crying. We just saw the Pope.
A pilgrimage to Portugal.
Dios nos ama. Más fuerte que no oigo.
An experience only God can provide, moments of intense excitement to extreme silence.
Can you imagine that? 1.5 million people in one place in total silence.
Traveling more than 3,000 miles, but getting closer to Christ. Right now on this special edition of Currents News, World Youth Day 2023.
Tendrá lugar en Asia. Será en Corea del Sur, en Seúl.
Young people have their sights set on Seoul. The South Korean city is now set to host World Youth Day 2027.
Hi, I'm Christine Persichetti. 4 years may seem far away, but pilgrimages take time and lots of fundraising. That's because they're unique, a chance to grow your faith and see the Pope up close and personal. We're taking a look back at the pilgrimage to Portugal through the eyes of the Diocese of Brooklyn. As Currents News' Jessica Easthope tells us, while the kids can agree the trip wasn't easy, they would do it all over again.
With their sleeping bags in hand, more than 1.5 million people started out on a 6-mile trek in triple-digit heat to the vigil that defined their pilgrimage to Portugal.
It was very grueling. I was struggling, but God carries me through all struggles. So definitely, my faith in God has strengthened.
Vincent Flores, a pilgrim from Our Lady Help of Christians in Midwood, remembers lying on the rocky ground as the sun went down, feeling closer than ever to his faith.
My prayer life definitely will be changed. I think when I pray, I'll be praying more deeply and more from the heart.
Diocese of Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan knows the pilgrims sacrificed for their faith on that walk and all throughout World Youth Day.
They've been making those sacrifices all week. There've been a series of early mornings and late nights, bearing the hardships, dealing with big crowds. They are sacrifices, but in the end, it was worth it.
Bishop Brennan was also in that crowd as adoration in front of the Blessed Sacrament began ahead of the overnight campout.
They brought the Blessed Sacrament out. The whole place just quieted down. Can you imagine that? 1.5 million people in one place in total silence. It just goes to show you the depth of the Catholic faith.
For the Holy Hour, when there was so much quiet for that Holy Hour, and we were there worshiping Jesus together.
Pastor of St. Thomas Aquinas Church in Flatlands, Father Dwayne Davis, says the most rewarding part of the pilgrimage was seeing it all come together for the pilgrims.
Seeing them grow in their faith, seeing the light come on in their head, in their eyes, it was really great joy.
Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
And we wasted no time. Fresh off the plane from Portugal, Currents News caught up with one Diocese of Brooklyn pilgrim, Victoria Lopez. Here she is explaining what it was like seeing Pope Francis for the first time.
I was very blessed. I was able to see him straight in person. I was able to see him front row. It was such a beautiful experience. It was so nice to see him. Everyone felt really happy to see him. The emotion, the feelings that were there. A lot of people ended up passing out because of the excitement that they got to see Pope Francis.
I can't even imagine what that was like. And Vicky, you know better than anyone now that this wasn't the luxurious and nice European vacation that you hear about. It was your first time in Europe, but you weren't on a vacation, you were on a pilgrimage. How was it like for you? You trekked through triple degree heat, you slept on rocky ground. What was it like?
The experience overall was very worth it. It was really nice to meet new people from all around the country, different teenagers that share the same belief as you. The experience was also very hard. It was hard, but it was very worth it at the end.
And Vicky, I want to just show you some highlights from World Youth Day. Let's take a look at this. Vicky, what emotions come up looking back at those highlights?
Super happy. Mentally, I'm still there. Physically, I'm here. But it just brings me excitement that I was able to experience this beautiful pilgrimage.
And when it comes to that experience, you really went on this pilgrimage to find a connection with Christ, a deeper connection. You have a young son, you're still in school. You went on this trip to find yourself, right?
Yes, I did. And many times I prayed to the Lord and I was able to feel his presence. And it was just a warm feeling in my heart that I was able to reconnect with him. My faith definitely strengthened a lot more than before I left versus now.
And given that it seems you had an amazing experience, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you think you'll be headed to Seoul in 2027?
Of course. I hope I can. If, God first, whatever happens in the future, I'm very ready for anything.
That was Victoria Lopez, a World Youth Day pilgrim from the Diocese of Brooklyn. And like Victoria mentioned, just being in the presence of the Holy Father can change your life. Let's take a look back at the first time young people from the Diocese of Brooklyn caught a glimpse of Pope Francis. A quick drive-by during the welcome ceremony.
We just saw the Pope. We can't stop crying. We just saw the Pope. We broke his hand.
And Stephanie Scotto, pilgrims from Our Lady of Sorrows in Corona, Queens, were moved to tears. Still in disbelief, the crowd of pilgrims from the Diocese of Brooklyn welcomed Pope Francis to Edward VII Park, along with hundreds of thousands of their peers.
I got the chills so much. I've heard so many people say, oh, you feel like a presence of God when you see the Pope, but it actually was pretty crazy.
Julia Galante, a pilgrim from St. Patrick's Church, said listening to Pope Francis's message was surreal. Through a translator, he began his address by telling them they were all called to World Youth Day by Christ.
You are not here by accident. The Lord has called you. Not only in these days, but from the very beginning of your days. Indeed, he has called you by name.
A message Julia felt was being delivered to her personally.
A few months ago, I didn't even know I was going on this trip. So it's I don't know, I think that's crazy because I really wanted to go on this trip to feel closer to God. It's really made an impact.
Pope Francis also reminded young people in attendance the church is for everyone, no matter your background.
In the church, there is space for all. There's room for everyone in every language.
And Father Jason Espinal said pilgrims were all in.
The Holy Father was inviting us to continue, so let that resound within us. So are you guys happy to be here? We'll keep reporting back to you. Thank you.
Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Despite his busy schedule, the Holy Father made time for one-on-one interactions with the pilgrims. He actually stopped his entourage on the way into a meeting with charitable organizations so he could high-five a child in a wheelchair. And of course, during his travels, the Holy Father had to bless some babies. Babies and the Pope, what's better than that? This was fun, too. We are now calling him Pope Francis the Painter. He added his brushstrokes to this nearly 2-mile-long mural created by the educational movement Escolas Ocorrentes. The Holy Father visited the organization's headquarters located west of Lisbon to talk with the young people and, of course, to put the finishing touch on this masterpiece meant to connect the pilgrims of World Youth Day. Another highlight, confessions. Imagine telling Pope Francis your sins. 3 pilgrims from Spain, Guatemala, and Italy got the honor of receiving the sacrament of reconciliation from the Holy Father. Donning a purple stole, he listened to them for about 10 minutes altogether. That confessional the Pope sat in was actually one of dozens built by inmates from 3 Portugal prisons. The 150 plywood structures were part of an initiative meant to help prisoners learn professional skills and reintegrate into society. They were all set up in what's being called Reconciliation Park, where the sacrament was offered to pilgrims in different languages. While sitting in the confessional, young people can experience a lot of feelings, ranging from forgiveness to even a calling to serve God. For one Diocese of Brooklyn priest, World Youth Day opened his eyes to a vocation. And ahead of the pilgrimage to Portugal, he told us his advice for any pilgrims who might be feeling the same.
I haven't looked at these pictures in a long time.
Father Kevin Abels remembers it like it was yesterday, his ordination to the priesthood in 2003.
The first time looking out, I was so nervous.
But it's a different memory that stands out as the beginning of his faith journey. World Youth Day, 1993, in Denver.
I felt the presence of God in a way that I never, hate to say, experienced in my 16 years of life at that moment. Blessed are those called to the
Father Abels, now the pastor at Our Lady of Angels and administrator at St. Andrew the Apostle Churches in Bay Ridge, was a rising senior at Cathedral Prep High School and had a somewhat typical teenage attitude.
I was invited by one of the faculty who's a good friend of my father, Joseph Gibino. I did not want to go at all. So Father Gibino, if you're listening, I apologize, but you actually convinced me to go.
Nevertheless, he went, and 5,000 feet above sea level reached a depth of faith that changed his life forever.
Being out in Denver's Mile High Stadium and the Holy Father leading the Stations of the Cross was like a rock star, you know? I mean, with all due respect, I never saw young people like that.
Years later, Father Abels headed back to World Youth Day, this time in 2011 as a chaperone in Madrid. Memories of when he accepted his vocation came flooding back.
He allowed me, through World Youth Day, to respond.
Now, as hundreds from the Diocese of Brooklyn prepare for World Youth Day in Lisbon, Portugal, he knows some are bound to have the same faith-defining experience he did.
You're there for a reason. You might not know the reason, but a great encounter with Christ is going to happen in Portugal.
Father Abels said if there's a spark calling you to religious life, World Youth Day might just ignite the flame. In Bay Ridge, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
What a great story. Do you know someone who found their vocation through World Youth Day or perhaps got closer to God following the global event? Email us their story at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. Our pilgrimage to Portugal coverage doesn't stop there. A sneak peek at the celebration set for Seoul, what the Archbishop there says pilgrims can expect. And they didn't speak the same language, but that didn't stop them from becoming fast friends. We explain. Plus, a look at the World Youth Days of years past, from John Paul II to Pope Francis in Panama. Stick around for some history coming up on this special edition of Currents News. Welcome back to this Currents News special edition celebrating all things World Youth Day, including the exciting announcement of the next host city.
Será en Corea del Sur, en Seoul.
The next celebration will be in Seoul, South Korea. It's only the second time World Youth Day has been held in Asia. The last one back in 1995 was in Manila. The Archbishop of Seoul said he hopes the event can unite the world's youth.
This World Youth Day is a great opportunity for all of us because although the culture and language are different, but we can feel we are the same, God's people. We are the one. So this World Youth Day is a great opportunity to feel this kind of unity in Christ.
Seoul has hosted several successful international events despite being in a technical state of war with North Korea since the 1950s. South Korea has hopes that young people from the communist nation will be able to join in the celebrations. Church leaders will be looking to have conversations with government leaders on both sides of the demilitarized zone. Young people have a long list of things they'll need ahead of their trip to South Korea, but pilgrims from Portugal can tell them no matter what they bring, it won't prepare them spiritually. Currents News' Jessica Easthope spoke to some youth from the Diocese of Brooklyn as they prepared for their journey to Lisbon.
through security, and you just have to, they'll shake it to make sure there's nothing in there.
Romeo Petrick has it down to a science.
Like a first aid kit. I know they make travel first aid kits.
What to bring and not bring to World Youth Day. This year's pilgrimage to Lisbon, Portugal will be his 6th.
Things that I've learned from others, things that I've passed along to others. Nobody brings heels. Everybody wants to look really nice when they have that opportunity to go out at night. If I see a pair of heels, they come out of their suitcase.
He heads to the store with 2 of the pilgrims he's bringing from St. Patrick's Church in Bay Ridge, Nick Puglisi and Isabella Calvaruso, as they grab the essentials.
Definitely gonna need this.
It starts to become real.
2 or 3 days before, when you start packing, it's like the trip really sets in and the excitement starts brewing.
Nick attended World Youth Day 2019 in Panama. This year, he's going with his 2 younger brothers.
Our last experience was surreal almost. You can feel a lot of the energy of a bunch of people being together with one thing on their mind.
It's Isabella's first time. She can't wait to connect with pilgrims from around the world and knows exactly how to approach it.
I was hoping to be a little bit extra and bring a big bag of American candy to share with the other countries.
So as they pack and repack, they're already making room in their hearts for an encounter with Christ.
I was always taught in Catholic school to see God in like everyday things, and that was always a really hard thing for me. My experience in Panama completely changed that.
I know certainly after this trip, I'm going to be telling everybody about it and how it positively impacted me.
But Romeo knows no matter what they bring, they can't prepare for what's ahead. Even after 5 pilgrimages, he's still surprised by it.
I'm tearing up a little bit, so I'll try not to. That's what gets me is being able to go to confession and having that conversation, and you do feel it.
As items get checked off the list and the days count down, these pilgrims realize their faith is all they need. In Bay Ridge, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
One Diocese of Brooklyn pilgrim had to make some extra room in her suitcase since she was packing more than just the essentials. Isabella Wagner made hundreds of friendship bracelets for World Youth Day. She and her friends traded the bracelets with other pilgrims. And the bracelets were just a new take on what's become a tradition. Often, young people from around the world will carry a few pins with them to trade, each one representing their country or their culture. And of course, young Catholics from the Diocese of Brooklyn took part.
We've met a lot of people from all over the world. Like, for example, I brought some Brazil pins and some from the Brazilian community at St. Rita's. So I have like these Brazil pins all over to exchange. And I actually exchanged one of them, which was on our way to the bus, with some girls from Chile. So I got my first Chile pin right here, and I'm looking forward to exchange much more as the week goes on.
The pins and the bracelets are a way for pilgrims to connect with each other despite a language barrier. Plus, they're a physical reminder of their time in Portugal. But the best part of the pilgrimage for the young people of Brooklyn and Queens seems to be unanimous, and it happened on their very first day. That's when they visited a place of miracles, Fatima.
They showed up as a sea of blue. Fatima is visited by 6 million pilgrims every year. But today, more than 300 of them were from the Diocese of Brooklyn.
It was so edifying for me as a priest to come down and a bishop to come down the aisle and see all the people in the blue shirts, to see Brooklyn is really well represented. Obrigado.
I caught up with the Diocese of Brooklyn's Bishop, Robert Brennan, after Mass at Fatima. He was on the bus with pilgrims who said being there allowed them to reflect on their beliefs.
It's also been prayerful. I've had a lot of moments of like reflection. When there's so much people, sometimes you can feel like more to look in.
It was really touching. Although it was very crowded, it's like very overwhelming as well, because you get to see where everything came from. And like, it's like everything is original. There's like nothing, like you can't make stuff up like this. It's like very original, very down to earth.
You guys say hi. Are you hungry?
But Bishop Brennan and Father Jason Espinal, the pastor of Saints Peter and Paul Church in Williamsburg, said the pilgrims have been focused on making a connection with Christ and each other.
But you still see them so well behaved, so reverent, so pious, and you see the fruit that's really working in their hearts.
These are young people who really made big commitments to get here. They worked hard to get here. You know, they're not here on vacation. They're here working and praying. It really is uplifting. I'm so proud. You know, and I'm sure the parents are watching and they can be really proud as well.
Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
And we're not done yet. Let's go back to the beginning. We take a look at World Youth Day's past, how the global event started, and the important moments that have made it so momentous. Plus, we take one last look at the Pope's journey during this pilgrimage to Portugal. We are back with our World Youth Day special. The event has a long history of uniting popes with pilgrims. It all started in the 1980s in Francis's hometown. Currents News' Andy Madison has the story.
The institution of World Youth Day was officially announced in 1985. In 1987, the first international meeting took place. The city chosen was Buenos Aires. The 8 World Youth Days of Pope John Paul II were widely attended, and the momentum continued with Pope Benedict XVI. Benedict's last World Youth Day as Pope took place in Madrid in 2011. One of the most exciting moments was the vigil with the youth, even despite the rain.
Gracias por esa alegría y resistencia. Vuestra fuerza es mayor que la lluvia. Gracias.
Just a few months after being elected Pope, Francis traveled to Rio de Janeiro to preside over World Youth Day. There, one of the most famous phrases of his pontificate was heard for the first time: make a mess.
Quisiera decir una cosa, ¿qué es lo que espero como consecuencia de la Jornada de la Juventud? Espero lío. Que acá adentro va a haber lío, va a haber. Que acá en Río va a haber lío, va a haber. Pero quiero lío en las diócesis. Quiero que se salga afuera.
The last World Youth Day that Pope Francis presided over was in Panama in 2019, where he dedicated several messages to the Virgin Mary. In one of them, he defined her as God's influencer.
Sin lugar a dudas, la joven de Nazaret no salía en las redes sociales de la época. Ella no era una influencer, pero sin quererlo ni buscarlo, se volvió la mujer que más influenció en la historia.
Andy Madison, Currents News.
And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Before we go, a last look, but through the Pope's eyes. See you in Seoul.